What's good, everyone? My name's Ayas, and today I'm here to review Rebuild World by Ayamura Kirihito and Nafuse. This is a light novel which received a manga adaptation recently, and it got a lot of buzz on the internet recently, so I thought I'd check it out and do a little review. Adaptations usually aren't as good as the original, and that goes for every form of media, with some few exceptions, but I had some high hopes considering a lot of people on the internet seem to really like this series, but I was sadly a little disappointed. The actual story itself is not that bad. It involves this AI alpha who teams up with this kid named Akira so that they both can get what they want. And what Alpha wants is a relic or some sort of mystery hidden super deep down in this ruin. And what Akira wants is to be able to survive and not have to worry about his day-to-day life. Alpha is pretty interesting because she's clearly hiding things from both the audience and Akira, although we know that she's up to no good. There's a lot of suspicious things surrounding her, and clearly the deal with Akira warrants more than Akira knows. The unfortunate part of this series is that it's not really brought up very often what Alpha is truly trying to do, and there hasn't been much progression made on that front other than the author occasionally reminding us that Alpha is very suspicious and she does have goals that we don't know of. Instead of focusing on her motivations or general world building, the author decides to display more character, and the characters in this series really aren't very good. I feel as if in the light novel, it focused more on the sci-fi, the technology, all the stuff sort of going on in the world and all the different organizations. But in the manga, that stuff doesn't really come across that well. Usually a lot of those details are glanced over or left out, and a lot of it ends up feeling incomplete. Now, there are some cool base ideas with how the world is structured, but again, it gets glanced over very quickly, and we're back to the characters. Now, these characters are really horrible. They're very shallow, pretty edgy characters who are very one-dimensional. It reads like a very generic, self-insert power fantasy type manga, and the main character literally said that he enjoys murdering people. Now, when he becomes super powerful with the assistance of Alpha, everybody in the world can't really hope to compete with him because this super AI is powering his every move. And people will act very condescending, knowing that he's a kid, knowing it's hard for him to survive. And afterwards, they will eat their words and they'll be proven wrong by him time and time again. Now, this is a very boring loop because it happens so often and is just there to appease the power fantasy fans, where they want their character to be massively busted and they want everybody to look down on him because that's how they view the world, that's how they think they're looked down upon. But really, nobody's looking down on all these kids, and if a world existed where everybody was this condescending, it would be pretty horrifying to live in a world like this. Now, characters having literally one personality trait does throw you off quite a bit because every character in the series just quite literally is there to make it seem as if the character isn't able to do what he is doing currently. They have nothing more to their character than that. Some of the other characters, like the main characters, actually admire Akira, and that's about the extent of their personalities. It's kind of hard to call this a story. It's more like one dude just going around flexing on people, and they just have to sit there and watch as he's just wanking himself off. It's pretty boring and very easily predictable. It's hard to sit through some of these scenes, which are just downright cringy. The art itself, at first glance, doesn't look too bad, but when you start reading the series and actually look at these images while reading, it's a lot worse than you would expect. There's a clear lack of focus on the subject of the artwork, and sometimes the artwork gets so messy that it's hard to follow. The artwork looks like it's okay because they flooded the page with effects. Now, if you look closely, you'll see tons of effects being used everywhere, and quite obviously being overused because it's used in every single panel. And that means that the scenes that are supposed to feel like they have a lot of impact and be dynamic, have a lot of movement, really don't. They feel very static, plain, boring. And even a lot of the monsters being used, they use a lot of the same monsters just in high quantities. There's been about 3 different monsters in the span of over 30 chapters, which gets quite boring at times. The male characters look so generic, it's actually quite scary. These characters look like they've been in every single generic isekai or power fantasy that's happened in the last 10 years. Now, the male characters and the action scenes are certainly below average compared to most manga, but when it comes to the female characters, they actually have good designs. But if all you really are looking for is good looking female characters, you might as well go read some doujins or something. The action scenes look like they should be exciting, but somehow they're not. Everything just ends up looking so flat and boring, and a lot of the gunfire scenes end up being repetitive later on in the series. If I mention overuse of effects, of course there's like the zoom in effect and all those type of effects. But when the glitter effect happened all behind Cheryl, it was actually so annoying and extremely hard to look at. It doesn't make your character more attractive just to draw a bunch of glitter behind her. Cheryl is probably by far the worst and edgiest character in the series. Every time she talks, I want to throw up. But the main character comes in a close second because he just supposedly enjoys killing people and is just super edgy at all times. It's also very questionable as to what a gang is in this universe, because a gang is clearly not the gang that they have in our world. they they get taken over by some random kid because he killed their gang leader. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's just not how it works in most stories, in most of the real world. Like anywhere you look, there's no gangs like this. Maybe you should have used a different word. I don't know exactly what kind of organization they're running. And this line here like sums up what this manga is all about. It's like the young girl smiled gently but coldly. Like what kind of edgy shit is that? It's very clearly like, middle schooler type stuff that maybe some kids will enjoy this, but yeah, it's looking rough. I have some hope that maybe the light novel is a lot better and it focuses more on the story and the sci-fi aspect of the world rather than these edgy characters. I'm feeling a very decent to strong 2. Thanks everyone for watching. Let me know what's the worst series you've read recently. Like, subscribe, leave a comment about anything you want me to review too. Thank you.